Viewers, welcome to Ekattor Television and welcome to Michael Foley. Michael Foley is the CEO of Grameenphone. I'm second time with him because at the end of this year, I think you will have much things from Foley. Foley is a very good observer of Bangladesh telecom industry, Bangladesh entire economy. That's why we will go to him. Michael Foley, welcome to Ekattor.
Kazi, thank you again for having me over. It's so nice to talk to you again.
Foley, it's a very good time that I'm having you because at the end of this year, Telecom is your field, bread and butter. And if you compare, if you analyze the whole year, how telecom sector experienced in this year?
Well, I think the story of the year for telecoms, and maybe one of the great stories of the year for Bangladesh, is the launch of 4G. After a lot of work last year, at the beginning of this year, the regulator conducted a successful auction and was able to issue licenses. And all three operators, I think even now Telecom, has now launched 4G in Bangladesh, and I think that is a very important story for us, both in the telecommunications industry and for the enablement of industry and the economy overall in Bangladesh this year. So for me, that's the top story this year, is the launch of 4G in the country.
But what is experience for several few months? What is your return? What is your feedback? What is your achievement?
Well, I think you have to understand that Bangladesh is doing something rather extraordinary. The rest of the world will take about 28 years to go from 2G to 5G. In Bangladesh, we're going to do that in 10 years or less, because within 2 years we'll start with 5G. But let's just speak about 4G. Both Robi and Banglalink have now rapidly expanded their networks, with Robi having about 7,000 sites. We now have rebuilt our network because it wasn't simply a launch, and we've got about 5,000 sites. We're going to continue, all of us, to expand into next year. So I think the experience for people who have 4G phones is really different. They're getting 5, 6, 7 megabits per second in terms of the download. They're getting high definition TV on their phones. So it's really quite interesting in terms of an experience for consumers, and they are coming to 4G very quickly.
But did you watch that news? Some people or some quarter disclosed that the sales of a smartphone declined in compared to the previous years.
I think this is a challenge. It's a challenge that the government understands quite well. We have very high duties on the import of handsets. And almost all the 4G handsets in Bangladesh are imported. So there is a point where the people who can afford handsets have bought them, and now we need to find a way to get the cost of the handsets down. Part of that is local manufacturing. Part of that might be a relief on the tariffs at the border for 4G handsets, because the unintended consequence of trying to build a local manufacturing base is that we are breaking, to some extent, the momentum towards digital Bangladesh by not having as many 4G handsets in the market as we should. If you look at Myanmar, it's about 45% smartphones, and here it's about 35%. Sorry, and in Myanmar it's 85% smartphones, and here it's about 35%. So we need to figure that problem out. It's a problem that we've discussed with the government, and that and the industry is trying to sort out with the government over the next year. But it's important. So I think handset pricing is key to growing the 4G marketplace. But we're quite satisfied so far with the pace that things are going at.
What do you observe about the behavior of the consumers?
Well, that's a fairly easy story to tell. It's about video. It's about people watching your program on a handset as opposed to watching it on a big screen. It's about content now being developed specifically for small screens that you hold in your hand. It's about products like Bioscope, which is like Netflix but only in Bangla, now starting to take off because people can consume it easily on a smartphone while they're traveling or at leisure in a Wi-Fi zone or in a 4G zone. So I think it's going to fundamentally change the way entertainment works and how information is disseminated. But 4G, the story is really about video. And most of the traffic that we get on 4G right now is video content. from different YouTube, from Netflix, from Bioscope, from similar kinds of products.
But complaints are there from the consumers or the telecom service users to telecom companies, network providers, that the speed is much lower in Bangladesh. But why do we need to ask the government, why do we question the government? Government says that we sold them very cheap price, but they are charging very high price, but they are not giving the right speed.
Yeah, it's interesting. We have, GP has the highest speed network in the country. That's about 7 megabits per second right now. That's more than enough. Now, there are places where, that's on 4G, by the way. So I really think people should move as much as they can from 3G to 4G. There are places where we have congestion. There's places where it's not as fast. But generally speaking, we're providing a pretty good service. I think the story here is, in fact, spectrum prices are quite high in Bangladesh. In fact, they're the highest in Asia.
Yeah.
So we know how to build fast networks. We have the fastest network in Bangladesh, but in the Telenor group, which is part of where Grameenphone belongs, we have the fastest network in the world. In Norway, we have the fastest network in the world. That's measured by third parties. We know how to do that. All we need is cheap, abundant spectrum. And then we can deliver networks that can give you 30, 40, 50 megabits per second. So spectrum is part of it, handsets are part of it, and I think the government is, I got to say something here, we're not in conflict with the regulator. We have debates with them, sometimes we have arguments with them, but we're not in conflict with the regulator. To be able to go from 2G to 5G, that has to be a marriage between the regulator and us. And as you know, I know, marriages are not always easy. Sometimes there is tension. And so we work through that because we know it's for the good of the country.
Are you preparing for 5G, all the telecom providers?
To some extent we are. There's still about 2 years away before we really have application cases for 5G. We have launched 5G commercially in a small part of Norway already, but those are kind of tests. The real 5G equipment is really not even manufactured yet. We have pre-5G standard equipment being available, but it's mostly for trial. And it will be for very specific applications like smart city, home automation, metering. It will be for smart cars, smart vehicles, but it's not as big a revolution as 3G to 4G. It will be something that will come gradually starting in a couple of years.
The demand will come and then you're making. Fully, I will hear many things from you because we have many things to hear from you, but I'm coming after a break.
Okay.
Viewers, we'll talk with Foley on telecom, economy and many things, but coming after a break. Viewers, we are again back to Michael Foley because we have many things to hear from him. He has a lot of experience. Foley, you are talking about the telecom and everything. About economy in this year, did you find it very compatible for 4G implementation, good for telecom providers, good for multinational companies? What is your observation the whole year?
Listen, I think this year was in line with the previous 8 or 9 years. There has been significant economic growth. And I think it's important to say that over the last 10 years, there is significant economic growth, macroeconomic indicators, literacy, birth rates, the number of children being registered at birth, all these economic indicators are moving in the right direction, social and economic indicators. So we think it's quite positive. And most of the people that I speak to when I do analyst tours around the world to talk about Bangladesh here are saying they expect this economy to continue to grow. So that's a good environment. For us as telecom operators, the pressure is continuing to invest in the networks. When we go from 2G to 3G to 4G so quickly, it is literally hundreds of millions of US dollars worth of investment every year. And when you're a large company like mine, we're able to kind of absorb that as part of our cash flows. But I also represent the rest of the industry, and AmTop, And I have colleagues in the industry who find this quite difficult, quite stressful on their balance sheets and on their economics to be able to continue to reinvest like this so quickly. When the rest of the world is taking 30 years to do this, we're doing this in 10 years as part of Digital Bangladesh. So we have to be careful not to kill the industry at the same time as we're growing so quickly. And that's another discussion that we have with the regulator to make sure that there is kind of economic viability for our partners.
You are so big company, you are so attached with the Bangladeshi people from village to rural level. You can observe many things, you can monitor many things. What is your monitoring about the spending capacity of your service users in city, in villages? Because they bought services from you. This capacity,
well, we see growth.
Yeah.
So people continue to spend. We're seeing increases in spending per month. But understand that our spending is actually very small. People generally, on average, pay less than 200 taka per month to us. So it's actually more like 170 taka per month on average that we get.
What is 5 years back?
It was probably about the same amount. It's not grown much at all.
Even including the internet?
Yes, including that, because voice goes down, internet goes up. So it is, what we see is more people coming. So the poorer people who were poor, now coming into the middle class, start now coming into using telecommunication services. Our revenue growth mostly comes from the increase in the number of users. So we now have 72 million customers in GP. Well, at the beginning of 2016, that was about 52 million. So the growth in the number of subscribers is what's seeing us actually increase our revenue and being more profitable. It's not necessarily the spending per customer. So to answer your question, more people are rising in socioeconomic status, moving from being quite poor towards, more sustainability, more towards the middle class, and now more of them are spending on phones, even smartphones, telecommunication services, and data services. So that is positive for the economy because they participate in the economy more when they have a phone. It's also good for us in the industry as well. There's no doubt about that.
We heard that you are in tight position, not only Grameen and many companies, that we heard about job cuts, we heard about cost reductions in companies you face.
But see, that's job cuts or cost reductions. This is part of managing a digitized company. There are parts of our business where we're adding people. In Telenor Health, we have 300 people. In other parts of our business, we're adding people. And in some parts of the business, we have to move people from one career to another. It happens. And that's just a natural part of doing business. Our company continues to be very healthy. And in fact, what we do creates hundreds of thousands of jobs and more competitive economy for Bangladesh. So we only have about 2,400 employees, but we create many more jobs than the jobs that we have ourselves. So yes, sometimes there's a plus or minus within our company, but overall we create hundreds of thousands of jobs.
What do you see for the 2019 in cost reduction and job cuts? And it will happen?
Well, I see we're actually going to be creating jobs in the company next year. Yes, there will be people who will move out of their current jobs into other jobs. That happens in all jobs. But on balance, our industry creates lots of jobs. We create a more competitive economy. We create a more connected economy, more opportunities for businesses to be competitive globally. We are a sustainable agent of development. Where we go, we develop economies.
Okay, I will hear from you about sustainable development and entire economy after another break.
Sure.
Viewers, we will come again fully after another break. viewers, I'm back to Foley again because we have many more questions we have to be answered from Mr. Foley. Mr. Foley, I'll go to you to hear about economy and the entire country's state of situation of economy. But before that, I want to hear another issue I missed in last part. What is your activities and what is your observation about the implementation of the safe using of internet or the safe internet? Yeah.
Listen, I have children. I have two more adult children, and I have a child who's 3.5 years old. We all have children who are now more and more exposed to the internet. It's becoming part of what they need to use at school. It's when they leave the house, they have access to the internet. So we think it's an important skill for the world and for the life of our children to learn how to use the internet safely. So we've decided to use that as a platform to try and get to hundreds of thousands of children and tens of thousands of teachers every year to teach basic skills on how to use the internet safely. We can't get away from the internet. The internet is part of our lives. It's what we need to work with. It's what we need to learn with. It's how we play. It's how we entertain ourselves now. But we have never, and to some extent, the parents of this generation are ill-equipped to teach their children how to use the internet safely because they didn't have it as part of their lives the way our children do today. So we have to bridge that gap between parents and children and teach parents and teach children how to use the internet safely. Very simple stories like have a proper password. Don't put out too much information online. The same thing that you say to children on the street, don't talk to strangers, while you tell them the same thing in the internet. Don't talk to strangers. Talk to people that you know. Don't put information online that you don't want to have online. For example, if you post a picture that says, we're on vacation in the Maldives with the family, guess what? Your house is empty and burglars will come to your house.
Yeah.
So you post after you go on vacation that you've been away. You don't post while you're away. Just these kinds of tools that you provide people with tips on how to use the internet safely. Would you leave the house and say, put a big sign on your house saying, I'm away, please come and steal whatever you want? You would not do that. But if online you say, I'm in the Maldives today with my family, it's putting a sign on your house saying, the house is empty.
Very crucial observation. I think you have to work it. And
we have to teach people how to do that.
Yeah, definitely. And let us come to economy. What is your observation about the entire economy, all parts of economy in 2018?
Well, I can see growth. I can see interesting effects in the garment industry, for example. Because of the trade challenges in China, what you're seeing now is many manufacturers are doing manufacturing China plus one. So they're doing part of their manufacturing for clothing in China, and they're doing a lot of their RMG manufacturing now, moving some of that back to Bangladesh or into Bangladesh, which means the RMG marketplace has seen a big growth in the last 4, 5, 6 months. Unfortunately, what's happening on the high-tech side is that work is going not to Bangladesh. That work is going to Vietnam and Laos, Cambodia, Philippines, and to Malaysia. We want to attract those high-tech jobs here, those high-tech manufacturing jobs here. And that's going to take work, and it's going to take skills development, and it's going to take government policy. These things are well understood, but I think we have an opportunity to leverage the skills that we have in Bangladesh and the economic policies we have in Bangladesh in terms of the repatriation of profit, 100% foreign ownership, tax credits for people who bring plants here, to bring high-tech manufacturing into Bangladesh more effectively. I think those things will help us going into the future. You know, we want to reach a middle income status by 2030 or so. We actually need to work on foreign direct investment much more aggressively. The BIDA is doing fantastic work. You know, the head of BIDA, Kazi Azizul Islam, fantastic guy, working really hard to make it simpler for people to kind of work here. We need to work as industry to bring that message clearer to the rest of the world and attract not only RMG, but also attract high-tech manufacturing jobs into the high-skill market that we have here in Bangladesh.
Yeah, fully, you know, we are very near to election, and after that, a new government will come, or the present government may come again, or the new government. What is your observation? What is your suggestion to the government? What are their priorities should be implemented with the very few days of their of the new government?
Well, First of all, I'm a foreign executive, so I am very careful about suggestions I give to the government because you have to act with respect. I'm not a voter here. This is up to the voters to decide. But what I would suggest more than anything else, one of the top priorities I would think that would help, that I understand, because there's many other things. I can't speak for agriculture, I can't speak for infrastructure, but I speak for, as a foreign investor, working diligently as a national priority to support BIDA and other entities to make it easier for people to come into the country and invest here. Now, that would actually create a flood of foreign direct investment. Our foreign direct investment has grown, but as a percentage of our economy, foreign direct investment is actually fairly weak in Bangladesh.
Compared with many other countries.
Compared to many other countries, we're probably one of the lowest in Asia now. So we can do much more. I know. We've been here for 22 years. This is an attractive place for foreign investment. We should have more foreign investment in Bangladesh. We should work industry and government and the agencies together to actually, we build mighty bridges across mighty rivers. We build nuclear power plants. We have put satellites in space. We can fix this administrative problem of the ease of doing business index and make it a national priority to change that over the next 3 years radically and go from 178th in the world to maybe less than 100th in the world. And we would actually massively increase the attractiveness of the country for foreign direct investment. I think the government will hear
you because it's a very crucial point, the ease of doing business. Michael Foley, we are about to end of this program. Thank you very much for attending this thing. I think the next government will hear your suggestions very seriously. Thank you very much.
You're very kind, Kazi. Take care, and all the best to you and to your listeners for the new year.
Thank you. Viewers, Michael Foley have paid attention to a lot of issues from telecom to economy, and very good suggestion for the next government also. I think the next government will hear him and hope they will implement his suggestion for the betterment of this economy. Thank you very much for being with us.